All right, let's start off here on number 2. We're going to factor these completely. So whenever we got the trinomial here, I like to build a little x, and then up top we're going to put a times c, and on bottom we're going to put b. And by a, b, and c, we mean just the numbers in front of all of these. So a in this case would be 1, b would be 11, and c would be 10. So a times c is obviously 10, and then b is 11. So what we're going to do then is we're going to try to come up with two numbers on the side that multiply to the top and add to the bottom. Now what I usually do for this is I kind of think about what multiplies to make 10, because the multiplication is actually, it's usually kind of easier to look at because there's less combinations. So I got 1 times 10 and 2 times 5. So I'm looking for the one that adds up to the 11. So then to me it's pretty obvious that's going to be 10 and 1. And so what that means is my factor is going to be v plus 1, v plus 10 in any order. All right, next up here, same idea. A times c up top would be 14, and then b is negative 9. And so we're looking to multiply to the top and add to the bottom. So I'm going to think of what multiplies to make 14. So I have 7 and 2, and I have 14 and 1. So if I want to add to negative 9, what I can do then is make both of these negative. And that still multiplies to a positive but adds to a negative, and so that'll give me x minus 7, x minus 2 in whatever order you want. Alright, next up here, once again, I'm going to put a times c up top and put b on bottom. So b in this case is negative 16, and then a is 60. So since I'm multiplying to a positive and adding to a negative, I know these are both going to be negative. I'm just going to think about what multiplies to make 60. You get 1 and 60, 2 and 30, 3 and 20. We could do 4 and 15. We could do 5 and 12. And we could do 6 and 10. And I think that's it. So I'm looking for one to make to add up to negative 16. So I'll do it as a negative 6 and a negative 10. So it's going to be p minus 6, p minus 10. All right, next up here, I'm multiplying to a negative. So when I do my x here, I actually know that one is going to be positive and one is going to be negative. Again, I'm going to put a times c up top and b on bottom. So this is negative 48 on top and then negative 2 on bottom. So we're trying to multiply to negative 48 and add to negative 2. And so I'm going to think about what multiplies to make 48. And since it's I'm going to have one positive and one negative, I'm actually kind of subtracting to 2. So I have 1 and 48, I got 2 and 24, I got 3 and 16, 4 would be 12, 5 doesn't work, 6 and 8. And I think that's it. So I'm looking to subtract a 2, so I'm going to say that it's the 6 and the 8. But since I need to add to a negative 2, I'm going to make the bigger one negative 8 and then the smaller one 6. So then I got x plus 6 and x minus 8 there. You can always double check this by kind of multiplying it back in. So if I did x plus 6 and x minus 8 and did my box here, I would get x squared, 6x, negative 8x, and negative 48. So you can see that that would make that original question, and so that's kind of just me checking my work. All right, find each product. This one means we're going to multiply, so we're just going to distribute in here. So we multiply the big numbers, the coefficients, but then add the exponents. And so that one becomes negative 20x to the third, k to the third. And this one becomes negative 35k squared. That's it. All right, here we're going for common factors. So we're going to GCF. So we're going to think about the biggest number that both of these multiply or divide by. So for 50 and 70, I would say it's 10. And then for my x's, I take out the smallest exponent, so that's x to the third. So if I divide negative 50 by by positive 10, I get negative 5. And then if I take out 3 x's there, I still have 1 x left over. And then over here, I have plus 7 because 70 divided by 10. And then my x to the third is gone, so I'm done. A couple of things here. First of all, you can always double check to make sure you take out everything you need by looking at 5 and 7. Is there another number that I could take out front? And in this case, there's not. There's not another x I could take out front, so I'm all good. If you did want to check your work, you could multiply this back in. So I get negative 50 x to the fourth, and then I would get positive 70 x to the third, so that does check out, but that means that this is my answer. All right, we're going for some more GCF here. So I see that these three numbers all divide by 5, and the smallest exponent is the first power, so I'm going to take that out front. So I divide this by 5, I get negative 8n, and then since I took one out, it's now squared. This one actually turns into a 1, and I took out an n, so I'm just going to put n. So you could put 1n, I just put n. And then this one, I took out the 5, and so that's a 1, and I took out the n. So in this case, I actually do need the 1 there as a kind of placeholder, so that when I distribute it back in, I get that 5n there. So if you take out the whole term, you do need to put a 1 there. So I'm going to check this by distributing, so I get negative 40n to the third, and then I get plus 5r squared, or it's an n, but yeah, okay, and then plus 5n. So that's why you need that 1 out back, or else you wouldn't end up with the 3 terms. So that's my answer then. This is me checking my work. All right, next up we're going to factor each of these, and this one is going to be by grouping. We always do that when we have 4 terms. So I'm going to group together the first 2 terms and the second 2 terms. So the first group, I don't see a number I can take out, but I can take out a squared, and that's going to leave me with 7a plus 4. And then the second group, let's see, those both divide by 3. So if I take out a 3, 21 divided by 3 is 7, and then 12 divided by 3 is 4. This is really good because we ended up with the same thing in both of these, and that's what we're going for. And so those two kind of combine here to one parentheses, and then I have another parenthesis for the stuff outside, so a squared plus 3. All right, some more factor by grouping here with our 4 terms. And so then I'll group them up. The first group, I actually see I can take out a 2 since they're both even, and I can also take out n squared. And that's squared right there. Let's see if we can do that better. All right, there we go. And then we have actually that's going to be 3n minus 2. Since I took out the n squared on that second term, it's just the number 2. The second group here, I actually want to take out a negative 3. And if I do that, that's going to make this positive 3n and then minus 2. So whenever you take out a negative, it's going to switch the signs. So the negative becomes positive, the positive becomes negative. You can always kind of check this work if you distribute in your mind. So that would be negative 9n, and then this one would actually be positive 6. All right, so now I'm going to make my parentheses, one for the outside. These guys combine to make 3n minus 2. And then these guys right here combine to make 2n squared minus 3. All right, next up here we got find each product. So these we're going to multiply. So you can use the box for this or FOIL. So I'll go ahead and use the box on this first one, and I'll show a FOIL later on. All right, so I multiply the big numbers, but add the exponents, so it's going to be 16r squared, and then negative 12r, and then a positive 12r here, and then a negative 9. You got to be really careful about your signs here. I see in this case, these two cancel out, so I just get 16r squared minus 9. All right, another one here, number 22. Now, when it's squared like this, you always want to write it twice. You cannot send that squared into addition or subtraction. So I'm actually going to FOIL this time, just to show this technique. But know that you could do the box as well if you'd like. So remember, FOIL is first, outer, inner, and last. And so what that means is the first one, I do the first number or term in each parentheses multiplied by each other, so that's n squared. Then the outer term is the outside times the outside, so that's negative 3n. The inner term is the inner term times the inner term, so that's negative 3n. And then the last is the last term in each parentheses, that would be positive 9. Now you do need to combine like terms, and so I see these two are like terms, so they're going to make negative 6n. They do not cancel out, and then there's our answer. All right, next up we're going to multiply these two. So I definitely like to use the box for this one because it's a lot of terms here. So I'm going to put negative 7b squared, negative 5b, and then 6, and then negative 8b minus 3. So now we multiply the big numbers. That's going to be a positive 56. And then we add the exponents, so it's going to be b to the third. Once again, multiply the big numbers, so that's going to be positive 40, and then add the exponents, it'll be b squared, and then this one will be negative 48b. Down here we have 21, positive 21b squared, and then a positive 15b, and then a negative 18. Now we need to combine like terms. The first one right here does not have a like term, so we'll just leave that as is. These two, though, are going to combine here. I'll do this in green. Okay, so we got positive 40 and positive 21, so that's going to make positive 61. And remember, now that we're adding, we're not going to change the exponents. When we filled it out, we were multiplying, so the exponents will change, but not when we're adding. All right, next up, we have 15b and negative 48b. Now, those are actually going to subtract because we have a positive and a negative, so I'm going to show that work over here. So I got 33, but the bigger one was negative, so it's actually going to be negative 33b. And then lastly, we have the negative 18, which is not going to change. No like terms there, and we're done. All right, next up, we got to find the difference here. So that's just subtraction. So for these ones, it's not the box because it's not multiplying, okay? So all we're going to do, so the box is only for multiplying, and these are actually just subtracting. So what we're going to do first is distribute this negative. So it's going to become negative 7v to the fourth minus 5, and then plus 5v squared, since that's a minus minus. And then I'm just going to rewrite this one as is because there's nothing to distribute there. And now we're going to combine like terms. So I'm going to get the v to the fourths first. So I have negative 3 right there. I got negative 7 right there. So that's going to make negative 10v to the fourth. I don't have any v to the third, so I'm going to go to the v squared. So I have positive 5. I got positive 5, so that makes positive 10 v to the second. And then my numbers, I got negative 3 and I got negative 5, so that makes negative 8. So once again here, we didn't have to multiply, so no box. We're just distributing the negative and then combining like terms.